The scalpel slipped from Nathan's gloved hand, clattering against the sterile tile of the ER floor like a gunshot in the dead of night, as the monitor flatlined with a merciless whine that drowned out his frantic pleas. "No, God, not him. Not like this," he whispered, collapsing over the gurney where his best friend's lifeless body lay, the metallic tang of blood mixing with the salt of tears he couldn't hold back. In that instant, as the code blue chaos swirled around him like a hurricane, Nathan realized the walls he'd built around his heart weren't armor at all. They were just another cage, and the key had been lost long ago in the shadows of Brooklyn's unforgiving streets. Nathan Hayes wiped the sweat from his brow with the back of his forearm, the fluorescent lights of Brooklyn General's emergency room buzzing overhead like angry hornets. It was just past midnight on a sweltering July evening in 2025, and the city outside pulsed with the relentless energy of New York. Sirens wailing, taxis honking, the distant rumble of the F train shaking the foundations of his world. At 28, Nathan was the youngest attending physician in the trauma unit, a title that sounded impressive on paper but felt like a curse in the flesh. He'd clawed his way through med school at NYU on scholarships and sheer grit, fueled by the ghost of his single mom's endless shifts at the diner and the promise he'd made to himself: save lives, no matter the cost. Tonight, that cost was sleep, sanity, and whatever scraps of a personal life he could salvage from the wreckage. He stripped off his scrubs in the locker room, the fabric stiff with dried blood, not his, thank God, and shoved them into his duffel. The mirror reflected back a man who looked 10 years older, dark circles etched under hazel eyes, stubble shadowing a jaw that clenched too often, chestnut hair cropped short but perpetually tousled from running hands through it in frustration. Nathan splashed cold water on his face, the shock pulling him back from the edge. Another 12-hour shift down, only to face the real battlefield waiting at home. His tiny one-bedroom in the converted brownstone on Dean Street, where the walls were paper-thin and the neighbors were a mixed bag of dreamers, drifters, and one particular pain in the ass named Zachary Ellis. The walk home was a blur of sodium vapor streetlights and the sticky humidity that turned the air into soup. Cobblestones uneven under his sneakers, Nathan dodged a group of laughing millennials spilling out of a dive bar, their voices slurring with craft IPAs and bad decisions. Park Slope was gentrifying fast, craft breweries popping up like weeds, yoga studios charging $50 a class, but Nathan's block still held onto that gritty edge, the kind that made you lock your doors twice and eye strangers with suspicion. His brownstone, a narrow 4-story relic from the 1890s, had been subdivided into apartments that leaked secrets as easily as they leaked heat in winter. And Zachary, he lived right next door, in 2B to Nathan's 2A, a fact that had turned neighborly civility into a Cold War faster than you could say property line. It started innocently enough, 6 months back. Nathan had just moved in, boxes still half unpacked, when the barking began. Not a cute yip, but a deep, throaty bellow that rattled the shared wall at dawn, courtesy of Zachary's mutt, a hulking German shepherd mix named Duke who looked like he'd sooner guard Fort Knox than fetch a stick. Nathan, bleary-eyed from night shifts, had pounded on the wall once, twice, before storming out in his boxers to confront the source. There stood Zachary, all 6'2" of him, shirtless and sweat glistened from a morning run, Duke at his heels with a lolling tongue and zero remorse. "Yo, Doc," Zachary had drawled, that southern lilt cutting through the morning haze like sweet tea on a summer porch, though Nathan would later learn he was from Atlanta, transplanted north for some vague, creative pursuit. His eyes were a piercing blue, framed by lashes too long for a guy who carried himself like he could bench press a Buick. And his smile? It was the kind that disarmed you before you knew you'd been hit. Duke here's just saying good mornin'. What's got your scrubs in a twist? Nathan had bristled, crossing his arms over his bare chest. It's 5 a.m., man. Some of us have actual jobs that don't involve whatever the hell it is you do while terrorizing the block with that beast. Zachary's laugh had been low and rumbling, like thunder rolling in from Jersey. Beast? He's a teddy bear. And me? I'm a photographer. Freelance. You know, capturing the soul of the city while you white knights save it one stitch at a time. The jab landed, light but pointed, and Nathan had retreated with a slammed door, vowing to invest in earplugs. But vows were easy to break in Brooklyn, where proximity bred inevitability. The incidents piled up like unpaid parking tickets. Duke digging under the fence into Nathan's minuscule backyard herb garden, uprooting basil and mint with gleeful abandon. Zachary's late-night inspirational playlists, think Bon Iver on steroids, seeping through the vents at 2 a.m. Nathan's recycling bin mysteriously ending up in Zachary's spot. Or worse, the passive-aggressive notes taped to the door. Doc, your coffee grounds are a biohazard. Share the love. Zachary's handwriting was all loops and flair, like he'd majored in calligraphy instead of chaos. By week 3, it escalated. Nathan came home to find Duke sprawled across his welcome mat, chewing on a loafer Nathan swore he'd left inside. He burst into the hallway, shoe in hand like a caveman's club, only to find Zachary lounging against his doorframe, camera slung around his neck, a smirk playing on those infuriating lips. Again, Nathan growled, thrusting the mangled leather forward. This is the third time. Train your dog, or I'm calling the pound. Zachary's smirk faded, replaced by a flash of something sharper, defiance, maybe hurt. He straightened, towering over Nathan by a good 4 inches, his broad shoulders filling the narrow space. Up close, Nathan could smell him. Cedar cologne mixed with the faint ozone of darkroom chemicals, a scent that lodged in his throat like an unwelcome guest. Duke's family, not some lab experiment you poke and prod. And for the record, that fence of yours is more whole than wood. Maybe fix your own shit before pointing fingers. Neighbor. The word neighbor dripped with sarcasm, a velvet glove over an iron fist. Nathan's pulse thrummed in his ears, a cocktail of fury and fatigue. He was used to high-stakes arguments in the ER, lives hung on split-second calls. But this felt personal, raw, like Zachary was peeling back layers Nathan had spent years sealing shut. Family? That's rich coming from a guy who can't even commit to a lease without turning the place into a doggy daycare. Zachary's eyes narrowed. Blue fire meeting hazel storm. Least I'm living, Doc. Not just existing in that white coat like it's a straitjacket. He stepped closer, voice dropping to a husky whisper that sent an involuntary shiver down Nathan's spine. You ever think maybe you're the one barking up the wrong tree? Nathan had shoved past him then, heart hammering not just from anger, the door to Tua slamming with enough force to rattle the chandelier downstairs. Inside, he leaned against the wood, breath coming in ragged bursts, cursing the way his body betrayed him, the flush creeping up his neck, the traitorous heat pooling low in his gut. It wasn't attraction, he told himself, scrubbing a hand over his face. It was adrenaline, exhaustion, anything but the spark of want that Zachary Ellis ignited, unbidden and unwelcome, in the ashes of Nathan's carefully controlled life. Weeks blurred into a tense standoff. Nathan took to leaving at odd hours, syncing his shifts with Zachary's runs to avoid the hallway gauntlet. But Brooklyn had a way of conspiring against solitude. One rainy Tuesday, Nathan trudged up the stoop, soaked to the bone from a busted umbrella and a downpour that turned gutters into rivers. His keys fumbled in the lock, exhaustion weighing him down like wet cement, when the door to 2B creaked open. "Jesus, you look like a drowned rat," Zachary said. No malice in his tone this time, just dry observation. He was in faded jeans and a threadbare Mets tee, Duke nowhere in sight, a mug of something steaming in his hand. The rain pattered against the awning overhead, a rhythmic underscore to the awkward pause. Nathan straightened, pride his only shield. "Long day." "Not that you'd get it." Zachary hesitated, then thrust the mug forward. "Coffee. Black, like your soul. Figured you could use it after whatever war zone you crawled out of." It was an olive branch, olive and barbed, but Nathan's fingers closed around the warmth anyway. The brew was strong, bitter, cutting through the chill like a lifeline. "Thanks," he muttered, meeting Zachary's gaze for the first time without daggers. Up close in the dim porch light, Zachary's face softened, crow's feet from squinting through lenses, a scar faint along his jaw from some untold story. Handsome, Nathan admitted grudgingly, in that rugged, unpolished way that screamed trouble. "Don't mention it." Literally. Zachary flashed a grin, quick as lightning, and retreated inside. Nathan sipped the coffee, the flavor lingering on his tongue like a promise or a warning. That night, as thunder rolled over the East River, he lay awake listening to the rain drum on the fire escape, wondering if the walls between them were starting to crack. But peace was fleeting in the city that never sleeps. The next morning brought the inevitable. A frantic page at 4 a.m., a multi-car pileup on the BQE spilling victims into his ER like broken dolls. Nathan stitched and shocked and prayed through the frenzy, hands steady even as his mind wandered, to Zachary's coffee, to the way his laugh echoed like a challenge. By noon, he was crashing, the hospital cafeteria a haze of fluorescent regret, when his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hey, Doc. Duke ate my lens cap. Again. You free for a truce beer tonight? Z." Nathan stared at the screen, thumb hovering. Part of him, the jaded, walled-off surgeon, wanted to delete it, reinforce the barriers. But another part, buried deep under layers of loss and loneliness, whispered yes. He typed back before reason could intervene. 7 p.m. McCarran Park. Bring treats for the beast. It was a small surrender, but in the grand chaos of their lives, it felt like the first real step toward something neither of them could name. Little did Nathan know, that step would lead them straight into the fire. McCarran Park thrummed with the lazy pulse of a Friday evening in late summer. Kids shrieking on the splash pad, joggers weaving through clusters of picnickers, the air thick with grilled hot dogs and the faint skunk of weed from a nearby bench. Nathan arrived early, hands shoved in the pockets of his chinos, a six-pack of IPA dangling from one fist like a peace offering. He'd changed out of his scrubs into something almost civilian, a button-down rolled to the elbows, exposing forearms corded from years of suturing marathons, but he still felt exposed, like a patient under the bright lights, waiting for the verdict. Zachary was already there, sprawled on a weathered picnic blanket under a sprawling oak. Duke flopped at his feet like a furry ottoman. The photographer looked every bit the bohemian transplant. Cargo shorts slung low on lean hips, a faded Bob Dylan tee clinging to his chest, camera bag within arm's reach like an extension of his soul. He waved Nathan over with a lazy flick of his wrist, that grin splitting his face again. bright as the setting sun gilding the Williamsburg Bridge in the distance. "Doc, you showed. Thought you'd bail for a house call or something heroic." Zachary patted the blanket beside him, Duke lifting his head to sniff the air with lazy interest. Nathan dropped the beers and sank down cross-legged, the grass cool and damp against his palms. "Heroic? Not. Just trying not to die of caffeine withdrawal. And Duke's not invited to chew on my liver, right?" Zachary chuckled, popping a top on a can and handing it over. The foam hissed, spilling a little onto Nathan's fingers. Sticky, cold, alive. Truce terms. No shop talk, no fence line gripes. Just two guys, shitty beer, and a dog who thinks he's the mayor of this park. They clinked cans, the sound sharp and satisfying, and for the first hour, it worked. Conversation flowed easy as the IPA. Zachary spinning tales of his Atlanta roots, growing up in a shotgun house with a mechanic dad and a mom who painted murals on abandoned billboards. His escape north after college, chasing light and shadows with a Nikon that had seen more of the world than most people. "New York's got grit," he said, eyes distant as he watched a flock of pigeons scatter. "Makes you feel small, but in a good way. Like you're part of something bigger than your bullshit." Nathan nodded, surprised at how the words landed. He shared sparingly at first, med school grind, the grind of residency, the quiet victory of his first solo appendectomy. But the beer loosened tongues, and soon he was confessing the ache of it all. The nights he couldn't save them, the way the beeper's trill haunted his dreams. "It's not glory," he admitted, staring into the amber fizz of his drink. "It's just holding the line. One patient at a time." Zachary's gaze softened, blue depths reflecting the twilight. "Sounds lonely as hell. You got people? Family? Or is it just you and the stethoscope?" The question hung, heavy as the humid air. Nathan's mom had passed 2 years back. Ovarian cancer, swift and merciless, leaving him with an empty apartment in Queens and a stack of medical bills he'd paid off with overtime. No siblings, no steady anything since college, when he'd buried his one fumbling romance under textbooks and ambition. "Just me," he said finally, voice rough. "Keeps things simple." "Liar." Zachary's tone was gentle, probing. He leaned back on his elbows, Duke's head in his lap, fingers absently scratching behind floppy ears. "Simple's for cowards. Life's messy. That's the point." Nathan met his eyes then, and something shifted, electric and unspoken. The park faded, the laughter, the distant sax busker crooning Coltrane, leaving just the two of them, suspended in the golden hour. Zachary's knee brushed his, accidental or not, and Nathan didn't pull away. Heat bloomed in his chest, familiar yet foreign, a pull he'd ignored for years in favor of the safe sterility of his career. Gay in a straight-laced world of scalpels and charts, he'd learned early to compartmentalize. Work first, heart locked down. But Zachary, he was chaos incarnate, a walking reminder that control was an illusion. As the sun dipped, painting the sky in bruised purples and oranges, they walked Duke along the perimeter path, shoulders bumping in the crowd. Talk turned lighter, worse Tinder dates, the Mets' eternal chokeholds, but undercurrents simmered. When a rogue frisbee sailed toward them, Zachary caught it one-handed, tossing it back with a flourish that made Nathan laugh. Genuine and unguarded, the sound startling even him. "See? Not all bad. Doc," Zachary teased, nudging him. "You should smile more. Lights up that grumpy face like Christmas in July." Nathan rolled his eyes, But the warmth lingered, coiling low. By the time they parted at the brownstone stoop, Duke dragging Zachary toward a hydrant, Nathan's cheeks ached from unpracticed ease. "Night, neighbor," Zachary called over his shoulder, key turning in the lock. "Don't be a stranger." Inside Tua, Nathan leaned against the door, heart a staccato rhythm. The apartment felt less empty, the walls less oppressive. He poured a glass of water, staring out the fire escape at the city lights twinkling like distant stars. For the first time in months, sleep came easy, dreamless and deep. The fragile thaw held for weeks, a tentative rhythm forming. Mornings brought coffee exchanges in the hallway, Zachary's brew for Nathan's shift snacks. Evenings, if schedules aligned, they'd cross paths at the corner bodega, debating the merits of everything bagels versus croissants. Duke became a reluctant ambassador, his tail wags bridging the gap. Though Nathan drew the line at walks, "I'm not your dog sitter, Ellis." It was during one such impromptu stakeout, guarding a bench at Prospect Park while Zachary shot candids of buskers, that the first real fracture appeared. Nathan had tagged along on a whim, nursing a thermos of hospital sludge, content to watch Zachary work. The man transformed behind the lens, focused, reverent, capturing fragments of humanity, a drag queen voguing for tips, an old couple slow dancing to a boombox Sinatra. "That's it," Zachary murmured, shutter clicking like whispers. Raw truth. Nathan envied it, that unfiltered passion. His world was diagnosis and discharge, black and white outcomes. "How do you not get jaded?" he asked later, as they wandered the paths lined with ginkgo trees shedding gold leaves. "All that broken beauty, doesn't it wear you down?" Zachary paused, slinging his camera over his shoulder. "Nah. It's fuel. Reminds me why I left the 9-to-5 grind back home. Dad wanted me in the shop, wrenching engines. But this," he gestured to the park, "the people, the pulse. This is living. And you fight for lives, Nathan. That's not jaded. That's holy." The use of his name, casual and intimate, hit like a jolt. Nathan stopped, leaves crunching underfoot. "Holy? Try soul-sucking. Last week, I lost a kid. Car accident. Parents screaming in the hall while I scrubbed his blood off my hands." The words tumbled out, unbidden, the weight of it crashing down. Zachary's face fell, hand reaching out to grip Nathan's shoulder, firm, grounding. "Shit, man. I'm sorry." His thumb brushed Nathan's collarbone, a touch that lingered too long, sending sparks skittering. "But you carry it. That's more than most." In that moment, under the rustling canopy, Nathan leaned in, not much, just a fraction, but enough. Their foreheads nearly touched, breaths mingling, the air charged with possibility. Zachary's eyes darkened, pupils blown wide, and for a heartbeat, Nathan hoped he'd close the gap. Then Duke barked, shattering the spell, chasing a squirrel into the underbrush. Zachary pulled back, laughing it off with a rueful shake of his head. "Saved by the mutt. Come on, let's get falafel before you pass out from hunger." They ate on a bench, knees touching now without pretense, but the almost kiss hung between them like smoke. Nathan chalked it up to endorphins, the park's magic, anything but the truth clawing at his ribs. He was falling, hard and fast, for the man who'd once been his enemy. Back at the brownstone that night, the hallway felt narrower, the air thicker. Zachary paused at his door, key in hand, turning with a look that stripped Nathan bare. "Hey, thanks for today. Means something." "Yeah," Nathan breathed, pulse roaring. "Me too." The door clicked shut, leaving Nathan alone with the echo of what-ifs. He stripped for bed, the mirror showing flushed skin, dilated eyes, a man on the brink. Sleep evaded him, body thrumming with unmet need. Across the wall, he heard Zachary's guitar, soft strums of an old folk tune, melancholic and yearning. Nathan pressed his palm to the plaster, as if he could reach through, and whispered into the dark, "What the hell are you doing to me?" Little did he know, the answer was everything, and it would break them both before it made them whole. Autumn swept into Brooklyn like a thief in the night, stealing summer's heat and leaving behind crisp winds that rattled the brownstones' rattled windows. October brought bonfires in the park, pumpkin spice everything at the coffee cart, and for Nathan, a dangerous new normal, Zachary. What started as beer-fueled truces evolved into something perilously close to routine. Shared dinners scavenged from delivery apps, movie nights on Zachary's lumpy couch with Duke as their furry chaperone, lazy Sundays where Nathan would nap with his head on Zachary's thigh while the photographer edited shots on his laptop, fingers occasionally tangling in Nathan's hair. It was intoxicating, the slow burn. Nathan, ever the rationalist, dissected it like a chart. Proximity plus chemistry equals infatuation. But deep down, he knew it was more, a quiet revolution in his chest, where walls crumbled under the weight of Zachary's easy affection. The man touched without agenda, a hand on the small of Nathan's back guiding him through a crowd, a knuckle brushing his temple to tuck away a stray curl. Each contact was a spark, building to a blaze Nathan both craved and feared. He'd dated men before, awkward hookups in med school, a 6-month thing with a pharmacist that fizzled under shift schedules, but nothing like this. Zachary saw him, not the MD, but the mess beneath, the orphan with calloused hands, the queer kid who'd learned to hide in plain sight. One chilly evening, as leaves skittered across Dean Street like confetti from a ghost parade, Nathan came home to find Zachary at his door, holding a takeout bag from that hole-in-the-wall Thai place on Fifth Avenue. "Pad CEW ambush," Zachary announced, grin wolfish. "Figured you'd be buried in charts. Duke's on sentry duty, no escape." Nathan laughed, the sound lighter than air, and let him in. His apartment was a study in functional chaos. Medical journals stacked like Jenga on the coffee table, a half-dead ficus in the corner, the faint scent of antiseptic clinging to the air. Zachary navigated it with familiarity, kicking off his boots and claiming the couch like he'd been there 100 times. They ate cross-legged on the floor, cartons between them, chopsticks clacking as they traded stories. Zachary's latest gig shooting a wedding in the Hamptons. Rich folks and open bars. Recipe for disaster. Nathan's war stories from a flu surge that had the ER looking like a zombie apocalypse set. "Ever think about getting out?" Zachary asked midway through, sauce smudged on his lip, voice casual but eyes intent. "Burning it all down for a camera and a road trip?" Nathan paused, fork hovering. "Every damn day. But then I remember why I started. That kid last month, the one with the bike crash?" He walked out grinning, scar and all. Moments like that, they stick. Zachary's gaze held his, soft and searching. "You're a good man, Nathan Hayes. Too good for this grind." He reached across the debris of dinner, thumb swiping the sauce from his own lip in a move that drew Nathan's eyes like a magnet. The air thickened, charged with the unspoken. Zachary's hand lingered, then dropped to Nathan's knee, deliberate, electric. Nathan's breath hitched. Zach. Yeah. The nickname slipped out, intimate as a secret. Words failed, drowned in the tide of want. Instead, Nathan leaned in, closing the distance with a kiss that started tentative, lips brushing like a question. Zachary answered with hunger, hand cupping Nathan's jaw, pulling him closer until they were a tangle of limbs and heat on the threadbare rug. It was messy, fervent, teeth nipping, tongues exploring, Zachary's stubble rasping against Nathan's smoother skin. Hands roamed, Nathan's under Zachary's shirt, tracing the ridges of abs earned from runs and restless energy. Zachary's in Nathan's hair, tugging just enough to elicit a gasp. They broke apart gasping, foreheads pressed, laughter bubbling up like champagne. About damn time, Zachary murmured, nuzzling Nathan's neck, breath hot against pulse points. Nathan's world tilted, colors brighter, edges softer. Yeah, it is. That night marked the shift from flirtation to fire. They tumbled into Nathan's bed, shedding clothes like old skin, bodies slotting together with an ease that belied the months of tension. Zachary was all contrasts, gentle in his touches, mapping Nathan's scars from or mishaps with reverent fingers, fierce in his rhythm, hips snapping with a possessiveness that left Nathan arching, moaning into the pillow. Afterward, sated and spent, they lay entwined, Zachary's heartbeat a steady drum under Nathan's ear, Duke's snores a distant lullaby through the wall. I could get used to this, Nathan whispered into the dark, vulnerability cracking his voice. Zachary's arm tightened around him. Good. 'Cause I'm not going anywhere. Lies, as it turned out, have a way of unraveling in the light of day. The idyll lasted through November's gray skies, a cocoon of stolen moments. Zachary started crashing at Nathan's, his place too cluttered with prints and props, waking to coffee and kisses, Duke's wet nose nudging for walks. Nathan found himself humming in the shower, lingering over texts. Miss your face already. Save me a seat in hell? Zachary's replies were poetry in emojis, hearts and fists and that damn camera lens. But cracks spiderwebbed beneath the surface. Nathan's shifts grew brutal, Thanksgiving weekend a bloodbath of overdoses and falls, leaving him hollow-eyed and short-tempered. Zachary, meanwhile, chased gigs that pulled him away. A week in the Catskills for a magazine spread, weekends at galleries schmoozing collectors. It's just work, he'd say, kissing Nathan goodbye at the door. Fuel for us. Nathan nodded, but doubt gnawed, a familiar beast from his mom's chemo days, when promises of tomorrow turned to ash. He buried it in routine, in the way Zachary's laugh filled the empty spaces. The first real storm hit on a frosty December eve. Nathan got home late, bone-tired from a double shift, to find the apartment dark. A note on the counter, gallery opening in Chelsea. Back by midnight. Love. Z. No kiss. No heat, just ink on paper. Nathan microwaved leftovers. Ate alone with the TV droning infomercials, the silence amplifying every creak. By 1 a.m., worry edged into anger. He texted, "Everything okay?" The reply came at 2, ran late. Crashed at a friend's. See you tomorrow. Friend. The word lodged like shrapnel. Nathan tossed fitfully, dreams fractured by echoes of Zachary's guitar, now silent. Morning brought confrontation. Zachary slunk in sheepish, hair mussed, Duke trailing with a guilty wag. Babe, I'm sorry. The after-party got wild drinks. Schmoozing. Didn't want to wake you. Nathan's jaw tightened, arms crossed like a shield. A friend's. Huh? Whose? Zachary winced, rubbing his neck. Just Alex. From the co-op darkroom. Old buddy. Nothing happened. Nothing. Nathan's voice rose, laced with the ER's edge accusatory, probing. You could have called. Texted more. I was here, pacing like an idiot. Guilt flashed in Zachary's eyes, but so did defensiveness. I get it. You're the responsible one. But I can't clock in and out like a 9 to 5. Art doesn't punch a time card. The word stung, reopening old wounds. And I'm just the boring doctor, right? Holding down the fort while you chase whims. That's not. Zachary stepped forward, hands raised. Nathan, come on. It's not like that, but it was. The fight escalated, voices bouncing off walls, Duke whining from the bedroom. Accusations flew. Nathan's walls too high, Zachary's freedom too reckless. You think this is easy for me? Nathan shouted, chest heaving. Letting you in? After everything? Zachary's face crumpled, blue eyes stormy. Then why fight it, if it's so hard? Maybe. Don't. Nathan cut him off, voice breaking. Don't you dare finish that. Silence fell, heavy as snow. Zachary grabbed his jacket, Duke's leash. I need air. We'll talk later. The door slammed, echoing Nathan's heartbeat. He sank to the floor, head in hands, the apartment vast and cold. Hours ticked by, texts unanswered, calls to voicemail. Panic clawed. Had he pushed too far? Was this the end? After barely beginning, dusk brought Zachary back. Snowflakes dusting his shoulders, expression raw. I'm sorry, he said, dropping to his knees before Nathan on the couch. I freaked. You're right. I'm shit at this. But I don't want to lose you. Nathan pulled him close, the fight dissolving in desperate kisses. Apologies murmured against skin. They made love that night with an urgency born of fear, slow, then shattering, bodies reaffirming what words couldn't. I'm in, Zachary whispered after, tracing Nathan's spine. All the way, Nathan believed him. God, how he believed. But belief is fragile, and betrayal waits for no man. Winter clamped down on New York like a vice, January's blizzards burying the city in white drifts that muffled the world's roar. Inside the brownstone, though, heat bloomed, fierce and fragile, stoked by late-night confessions and tangled sheets. Nathan and Zachary navigated the aftermath of their blowout with cautious optimism. Date nights at dim jazz clubs in the village, where Zachary's knee pressed against Nathan's under the table. Snowball fights in the park that ended in breathless chases and tackles into powder-soft lawns. Duke, ever the opportunist, reveled in it, bounding through snowbanks while his humans stole kisses behind oaks. Nathan felt anchored. For the first time, his shifts less burdensome with Zachary's texts lighting up his pocket. Thinking of you in scrubs. Hot as hell. Dinner after? It was domestic. Deliciously so. Grocery runs debating kale versus collards. Zachary's failed attempts at Nathan's mom's gumbo recipe. Too much cayenne. Southern boy. Less is more. Movie marathons with takeout and trash talk. Nathan even opened up about the ghosts. His mom's final days. The way he'd held her hand as monitors beeped their dirge. Promising himself he'd never love that hard again. You make me want to break that promise, he admitted one night, curled against Zachary's chest, the radiator hissing like approval. Zachary held him tighter, voice a rumble. Good. 'Cause I'm keeping you, Doc. Promise. It was enough until it wasn't. The unraveling started subtly, a frayed thread in the weave. Zachary's gigs ramped up, a contract with a hipster mag for street portraits, pulling him into Manhattan's glittering underbelly of openings and afters. He'd come home hollowed out, eyes distant, smelling of gin and strangers' perfume. Networking, he'd say, waving it off with a kiss. Nathan nodded, trusting, but the seed of doubt sprouted, fed by long hours, unanswered calls, the way Zachary's phone buzzed late with notifications he silenced too quickly. February brought Valentine's, a hallmark trap Nathan usually dodged, but Zachary insisted. He planned it meticulously. Reservations at a cozy bistro in Cobble Hill, candlelight flickering over oysters and confessions. Nathan arrived early, nerves jangling like keys, a slim leather journal in his coat pocket, his gift, filled with scribbled notes. Reasons he loved Zachary's chaos. Sketches of their life if the world allowed. You're my best bad decision. One page read, in Nathan's precise script. Zachary swept in fashionably late, windswept and beaming, a bouquet of wildflowers clutched in frost-reddened hands. For my favorite skeptic. They ate, laughed, the wine flowing like the confessions that followed. Zachary admitting his fear of settling, Nathan voicing his terror of loss. To us, Zachary toasted, glasses clinking, eyes locked with a heat that promised forever. After, back in the brownstone, they barely made it through the door, coats shed in a trail, bodies crashing together in the hall. It was worshipful, urgent. Zachary on his knees, mouth hot and reverent. Nathan gasping Zachary's name like a prayer, hands fisting dark hair. They collapsed into bed, spent and sighing, the journal forgotten on the nightstand. Morning shattered it. Nathan woke to an empty bed, Duke's paws clicking in the kitchen. Coffee brewed, but Zachary was gone. Another note, early shoot in the LES. Love you. Nathan smiled, stretching, until his phone chimed. A notification from Instagram, Zachary's account tagged in a story. Curiosity piqued. He tapped, then froze. The photo was innocuous at first glance. Zachary at a dimly lit bar, arms slung around a guy, tall, tattooed, laughing with easy intimacy. Caption: Nights with old flames never die easy. At Alex Darkroom Art Life NYC. Alex. The friend from months back. Nathan's stomach plummeted, the room spinning. He scrolled, heart hammering, more tags. Stories from the same night. Zachary's hand on Alex's thigh under a table. A shot of them dancing, bodies close, lips brushing ears. No kiss, not quite, but the implication screamed. Betrayal, cold and sharp, knife through him. Nathan dressed mechanically, the journal burning a hole in his pocket. By noon, he was at the hospital, suturing a laceration with hands that shook, mind replaying the images like a loop of film. Old flames. How old? How alive? Zachary texted mid-shift. Miss you already. Falafel later, Nathan's thumb hovered, rage and hurt warring. He typed, we need to talk. Now. The confrontation waited until evening. Snow squalling outside as Zachary bounded in. Oblivious, Duke shaking off flakes. Babe, you won't believe the light today. Save it. Nathan's voice was steel. Phone thrust forward with the screenshot. Who's Alex? Really? And don't bullshit me. Zachary's face drained of color. Eyes flicking from screen to Nathan. It's nothing. An ex. We ran into each other at the opening. Had a few drinks. Caught up. Caught up. Nathan's laugh was bitter, echoing hollow. Your arm around him like that? Dancing? That's nothing? Guilt twisted Zachary's features, but defiance sparked too. We were friends first, Nathan. Before this. It doesn't erase us, doesn't it? Nathan paced, the apartment closing in. You lied. That night after our fight, crashed at a friend's. It was him. And now, you're posting like some lovesick kid. Zachary's jaw clenched, hands balling. Jealous? That's rich. Coming from Mr. Straightjacket. I told you art's my world. People overlap. Doesn't mean I'm fucking him. The crude word landed like a slap. Nathan recoiled, vision blurring with unshed tears. But you want to. I saw it, your eyes, the way you touched him. Like you touch me. Silence stretched, taut as a wire. Zachary stepped closer, voice low. Nathan, listen. No. Nathan shoved the journal into his chest. Read it. All the ways I let you in. Then tell me I'm wrong. Zachary flipped it open, pages trembling in his grip. His expression fractured. Regret, longing, fear as he scanned the words. Shit, he whispered, closing it gently. I don't deserve this. But Alex, he's safe. Familiar. You're terrifying. Real. The admission gutted Nathan. So I'm the risk. The one you run from when it gets hard. No. Zachary grabbed his arms. Desperate. I love you. Damn it. Messy. All in love. Then prove it. Nathan's voice cracked. Cut him out. All of it, the overlaps, the old flames, or we're done. Zachary's eyes searched his. Storms brewing. You can't demand that. It's my life. Your life. Nathan wrenched free, backing toward the door. This was our life. But go on, chase your flames. I'll be here, holding the pieces. He stormed out into the blizzard, coat forgotten, snow stinging like accusations. The walk to the ER cleared his head, but not his heart, numbness settling as he clocked in for an impromptu shift. Patience blurred. A sprained ankle, a feverish kid, all echoes of his own breaking. Zachary's texts bombarded. Come home. Please. I choose you. Nathan silenced them, focusing on the fluorescent hum, the beeps of monitors. Hours later, a final message. Alex was a mistake. I'm ending it. For us. Relief ward with residue rage. Nathan replied, prove it. Tomorrow. Sleep came in fits, dreams of fire and falling. Morning brought Zachary at the door, hollow-eyed, a manila envelope in hand, screenshots of blocked numbers, a deleted IG post. It's done, he said, voice raw. All of it. Nathan let him in. The hug fierce, forgiveness a tentative bridge. They talked for hours, boundaries drawn, vulnerabilities bared. I almost lost you, Zachary murmured, forehead to Nathan's. Won't happen again, but high tides recede, and storms brew unseen. As February thawed into March, the betrayal lingered like frostbite, a numbness in Nathan's trust, a shadow in Zachary's eyes. Gigs still called, but Zachary came home earlier, hands clean of gin. Nathan worked doubles, burying hurt in hernias and heart attacks. The true tempest hit on a mild spring night, cherry blossoms unfurling along the promenade. Zachary had a show, his first solo. Prince of Brooklyn's underbelly hung in a loft gallery in Bushwick. Nathan arrived late, fresh from a code that had saved a barista's life. Askew, pride swelling as he wove through the crowd. Zachary's work glowed. Gritty portraits of drag queens, bodega cats, Nathan himself in one, a candid from the park, eyes soft with unspoken love, titled The Healer. He found Zachary amid admirers, champagne flute in hand, beaming. "You came. Wouldn't miss it." Nathan pulled him into an alcove, kiss claiming. "Proud of you." The night peaked in euphoria, sales tallied, toasts raised. But as the crowd thinned, Nathan spotted him. Alex, lurking by the exit, gaze lingering too long on Zachary. No approach, just a nod, but the ice in Nathan's veins returned, sharp and familiar. Outside, waiting for a car, Nathan's voice was quiet. "He was here." Zachary stiffened. "Coincidence?" "The art world's small." "Is it?" Doubt poisoned the words. "Or did you invite him?" One last look. "Nathan!" Hurt flashed, but Nathan was already hailing a cab, the chasm widening. "Wait!" The door slammed on please, tires hissing into traffic. Back home, alone, Nathan packed a bag, essentials, escape. Duke whined as he scratched ears goodbye. "Tell your dad I need space," he texted. "This isn't working." The reply was a gut punch. "Don't do this. Please." But Nathan did, crashing at a colleague's in Fort Greene, shifts a blur of autopilot. Days stretched to a week, silence deafening. Then, the call, hospital switchboard, urgent, DR. "Hayes, you're emergency contact. Zachary Ellis. Car accident. Critical. The world grade." Nathan ran, scrubs flying, heart in his throat. The ER loomed. Ironic mirror, gurney, monitors, blood. Zachary lay pale, tubes snaking, eyes fluttering open at Nathan's voice. "Zach." Tears blurred. "Hold on." A weak squeeze of his hand. "Sorry. For everything." Guilt crashed. Had his flight pushed this? The crash. Icy patch on the BQE. Zachary rushing to the gallery, to prove himself. Nathan stayed through the night, vigil like his mom's, whispering love, regret. Dawn brought stability, concussion, fractures, but alive. As nurses bustled, Zachary rasped, "Don't leave." Again. "I won't," Nathan vowed, kissing knuckles. "We're fixing this. Together," but vows, as winter taught, melt under spring's sun. Spring unfurled in Brooklyn with tentative grace. Dogwoods blooming pink against gray facades. The air sweet with rain-kissed earth and the promise of renewal. Nathan barely noticed. His world narrowed to the beep of monitors and the antiseptic sting of Zachary's hospital room. For 3 days, he camped in the vinyl chair, catnapping between vitals checks, hand clasped in Zachary's bandaged one. The accident replayed in nightmares. Zachary's Jeep hydroplaning on black ice, crumpling against a guardrail, the frantic 911 call from a passing trucker. Concussion, 3 cracked ribs, a shattered wrist, survivable, the ortho said, but the what-ifs haunted Nathan like ghosts. On the 4th morning, as sun slanted through blinds, Zachary woke clearer-eyed, morphine haze lifting. "You look like shit, Doc," he croaked, voice gravel rough but teasing, blue eyes crinkling at the corners. Nathan managed a watery smile. thumb tracing Zachary's knuckles. Pot, kettle. How's the pain? Eh. Like Duke sat on my chest. A pause. Heavy. Nathan. About before. Shoo. Nathan leaned in, forehead to Zachary's. Later. Heal first. But later came swift. Discharged after a week. Wrist in a cast. Ribs taped. Mobility a joke. Zachary hobbled back to the brownstone on crutches Nathan procured from the hospital surplus. Duke went berserk at the reunion, licking faces and wagging so hard he toppled a lamp. The apartment felt sacred, dusted in their absence. Takeout containers cleared, sheets fresh, a stack of Zachary's prints waiting on the counter, portraits of Nathan sleeping, cooking, laughing, each captioned with a single word, home. They settled into a fragile rhythm. Nathan took leave, unheard of, burning precious PTO, to play nurse, meds on schedule, sponge baths that blurred into tender intimacies, meals of soup and stories. Zachary, restless as ever, sketched with his good hand, charcoal smudges on bandages. Talk turned inward, raw under the weight of near loss. I almost died thinking you'd hate me, Zachary confessed one rainy afternoon, propped on pillows, Duke curled at his feet. Rain lashed the window, a symphony of gray. Alex was stupid, a crutch. Familiar because it didn't demand shit. You demand my whole damn soul. Nathan sat on the bed's edge, hand on Zachary's thigh. I know. And I pushed, demanded too much, too fast. My mom's death. It wired me wrong. Loss feels like failure. Zachary's good hand cupped his cheek, callous thumb stroking. Not failure. Love. Messy. Human love. A beat. I blocked him. For real this time. And the gigs? Scaling back. No more chases that pull me away. Tears pricked Nathan's eyes. You don't have to. I want to. Zachary pulled him down. Kiss soft. Ceiling. You're my anchor, Nathan. The one shot that matters. Healing wasn't linear. Physical therapy graded, Zachary cursing through wrist exercises, Nathan biting back lectures. Emotional scars festered. Nathan's trust a tender bruise, Zachary's guilt a shadow. They fought small, over painkillers. I'm not an addict, just hurt. Over Nathan's hovering, I'm broken, not glass. But each clash ended in apologies. Embraces, a recommitment fiercer than before. April bloomed, and with it, possibility. Zachary's cast came off, scarred but strong. His first post-crash shoot a quiet affair. Portraits of recovery, patients at Brooklyn General, including Nathan in scrubs, stethoscope like a talisman. The exhibit, mended, hung in a tiny gallery off Atlantic Avenue, critics calling it a love letter to resilience. Opening night, Nathan stood beside him, arm linked, pride swelling as guests murmured approval. You did this? Nathan whispered, clinking plastic cups of cheap Chardonnay. We did. Zachary's grin was pure light. Could have been a solo show in hell without you. Summer teased early, fireflies flickering in community gardens. They marked milestones. A weekend getaway to the Finger Lakes, cabin rented on a lake, where they fished, badly, swam naked under stars, made love on a dock with loons calling witness. Back in Brooklyn, life wove tighter, Zachary teaching Nathan darkroom basics, chemicals sharp and alchemical. Nathan dragging Zachary to ER softball, where the photographer struck out spectacularly, laughing through bruises. But the story's heart beat in quiet moments. Evenings on the fire escape, city humming below, Duke snoring inside. One such night, July heat wave breaking in a thunderstorm, Nathan turned to Zachary, rain drumming tin. "Remember our first fight? Dog in the yard. Me screaming like a lunatic." Zachary chuckled, arm around Nathan's waist. "Yeah. Thought you were the uptight prick next door. And you were the hot mess with the beast." Nathan nuzzled his neck, inhaling cedar and summer. "Best mistake ever." Thunder rolled, lightning etching their silhouettes. "Love you," Zachary murmured, turning to capture Nathan's lips. Slow, deep, a vow in motion. "Love you back." Nathan's hand slipped under Zachary's shirt, tracing familiar planes. They made their way inside, shedding clothes in the hall, bodies joining with the reverence of survivors. It was languid, exploratory, Zachary's mouth mapping freckles, Nathan's fingers coaxing gasps, culminating in release that left them trembling, entwined. As rain eased to patter, Zachary's voice was soft. "Think we'll make it? The long haul." Nathan propped on an elbow, tracing Zachary's scar, the new one from the crash, a jagged line along his collarbone. "We already have. Fights, crashes, all of it. We're the story that keeps going." Zachary smiled, pulling him close. "Damn right." Epilogue whispered in the years that followed. Zachary's book deal fermented. Photos with Nathan's captions, medical musings on healings art. Nathan's promotion to chief resident. Zachary at his side for the ceremony. Duke sporting a tiny bow tie. They adopted a rescue mutt. Sibling to Duke. Chaos doubled but joy infinite. Weddings came, legal in New York since 11. But they waited for the right sunset. Vows exchanged on that McCarran blanket. City as witness. Not every tale ends in rainbows. Scars fade but linger. Trust rebuilt plank by plank. Yet in the brownstone on Dean Street, walls once thin with enmity now echoed laughter. Love, a testament that listening to the heart, even when it screams, leads not to ruin, but redemption. And so, in the city of broken dreams and mended hearts, Nathan Hayes and Zachary Ellis fought on, not against each other, but for the life they'd clawed from the ashes. Proof that sometimes, the neighbor from hell is the love of your life.